Hey, Burisma, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome, thank you. Mayor, we lost internet for a little bit. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can now. Everything went totally dead silent there for a little bit, but yeah, I hear you just fine.
Okay, great. You can call the meeting to order if you'd like. Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's 1:30 in the afternoon, and we are here for the exit meeting after the city audit for 21-22 fiscal years. And so I want to welcome you all here for that. I apologize for not being there in person, but work constraints and other meetings that I have going on have made that a little bit more difficult. So for anything that needs to happen on site, we can let the deputy mayor take a leadership role there as well. But I'm going to be here for the duration of the meeting. So let's get the ball rolling, Mr. Deputy or Mr. City Manager.
I'll turn it over to Jameson.
I'll introduce Ann Strand, the audit manager for Team Yakima, and Justin Mills, our audit lead for our 2021-2022 financial and accountability audits.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Ann Strand. I'm the audit manager with the State Auditor's Office. I appreciate the opportunity to spend a few minutes this afternoon to go over the results of your financial audit and your accountability audit for 2021 and 2022. So first of all, I just want to explain a little bit about our office. We are the Washington State Auditor's Office, and we're here to audit the accountability of your local government to make sure that you're safeguarding your resources, that your financial statements are prepared and presented correctly, and that your reporting is accurate and complete. So today we have a packet that we've provided to the council as well as to the mayor. We'll be going through that packet today, answering any questions that the council or the mayor might have for us, and of course, going through the results. So the first thing I want to talk about is whenever we have an audit, we have three different types of recommendations that we may provide during the audit process. So first of all, our highest level of recommendation reporting is a finding. We don't have any findings for you today. Findings would be included in the report packet, and those would be published for the public to be able to see. Those would be significant items of noncompliance or significant items of internal control weaknesses. Again, we don't have any findings to share with you today. The second level of recommendation we have would be a management letter item. Those would be items that we see during the course of the audit that could be a noncompliance or internal control weakness that may not be significant enough to put into the actual finding report, the actual report, but we do want to make sure that management is aware of those items. Those are considered management letter items, and today we don't have any management letter items, so that's good for you as well. Yes, so the lowest level of recommendation would be what we call an exit item recommendation, and those are minor items that we've identified during the course of your audit that we make sure that we let management know of. That is through the course of our audit, and then we present just an exit item comment to them before we get here to the exit conference today. We do have a few exit item recommendations. Those have been provided to the city. Those are not going to be presented today at the meeting, but I'm sure management and Jameson will provide those to the council as needed through the course of your normal process. So today we'll go first into your accountability report. Actually, before I get into the accountability report, I just want to explain a change from our entrance conference to our exit conference. So initially, when we met with the city at your entrance conference, we had intended on performing a federal compliance audit. A federal compliance audit is required anytime you spend over $750,000 of federal funding in any 1 year. And your schedule of expenditures of federal awards is what you report to our office to notify us of how much you spend in your federal funding. When you submitted your schedule of expenditures of federal awards, the federal funding was over $750,000. So we came in to do a federal compliance audit at that point. And that's what we communicated to you during the entrance conference. When we started performing that audit, we determined that your schedule of expenditures of federal awards was overstated. So when we actually concluded how much was on that schedule, it was below the $750,000, which means that you did not need a federal compliance audit. So that's, in one case, that's good because you don't have to have that extra federal audit. However, since we had already performed most of that work already, we didn't want to lose that work. We wanted to give you credit for, having some of that work done. So we included that federal program that we audited within our accountability report. So we included that work within one of the sections that we tested in accountability. So you'll see that in the accountability report is one of the sections that we included in our audit. So that means that we're doing an accountability audit and a financial audit, but not a federal compliance audit that has to be reported to the Federal Clearinghouse. Any questions about that?
On that note, but you've done it already anyway,
Yes.
is what you're saying.
Yes, we had already done the major program work already by the time we had concluded that you were under that threshold. So we didn't want to just wipe that away. We wanted to be able to show you that, yes, we did audit that program and there wasn't any concerns.
There were no concerns.
Yes,
That's the most important answer to the question. Okay.
yes. And we'll get into the actual report and talk about that here in just a second.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
What is the protocol like you did? You found out that we didn't need that audit. I was still expecting an exit audit of findings when you closed that, or not closed it, stopped doing it. So I was kind of confused on how you transitioned from that to this.
Exactly. So this is the conclusion, first of all. So we're concluding now, but at the time that we found that you didn't need a federal single audit, then we amended your engagement letter. We sent that amendment to the city to notify the city that we were not going to be completing that federal single audit because it wasn't required. And that instead we would be switching to an accountability audit. So yes, we did that notification through the amendment process.
And she did provide it to us. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we move into the report? All right, so if you can go to the tab that's called Accountability Report, it's on page 5. This is a draft. I just want to say that this is draft. It has not been issued on our report yet. So the page 6 is a letter from the elected state auditor, Pat McCarthy, thanking you for the opportunity to perform your accountability audit. Page 7 is the table of contents, and then we'll move into page 8, which is the audit results. And the results in brief, this again is for accountability purposes. So let me just explain what an accountability audit is. It's when we're looking at your activities and your operations to make sure that you're in compliance with state laws and regulations and have internal controls in place to safeguard your public resources. So again, this is on page 8, the audit results in brief.
I don't have a page 8.
No, do you have
Do you have a page 5? Let me look at
I
it.
have a page 7.
it says, well, the 7's in the
Oh.
middle page is
Oh,
4.
it's on page 5. Okay,
5.
okay.
Yeah,
Two different.
there's 2 different pages.
Yeah, they're the center.
Yeah,
About
it's the
looking at
center
the
page
center.
number.
Okay.
Sorry for
Learned
that
something.
confusion. It's because the actual accountability report is page 5, but the whole packet page is page 8. Sorry for that.
Sorry.
So you can see at the very top, the results in brief says that the report describes the overall results and conclusions of the areas we examined. In those selected areas, cities' operations complied in all material respects with applicable state laws, regulations, and its own policies, and provided adequate controls over the safeguarding of public resources. So I want to emphasize that this is in all material respects. We don't audit everything for the city. We audit based on a risk-based approach. So Justin will explain all of the sections that we audited, but even in those sections, we don't include every transaction. We audit those transactions that are of highest risk. So Justin, if you can go through the rest of that page.
Thank you, Anne. So some of the areas that we looked at during this accountability audit, first one being is self-insurance for unemployment. The city is self-insured for those unemployment claims. It's a requirement for us to take a look at those claims every 2 years. Compliance with coronavirus state and local recovery funds, kind of like what Anne said, we already performed that work, so we wanted to include that in our accountability so that work wasn't lost. We looked at payroll, overtime, retirement contributions, and electronic funds transfers. Then we looked at accounts receivable and specifically utility billings. So we recalculated a few utilities and made sure that those were in compliance. Then we looked at procurement for public works and purchases, cost allocation plans, equitable distribution of indirect costs. So how funds are distributed across funds throughout the city. And then financial condition for reviewing for indications of financial distress. We actually do this in the planning phase of our audit, looking for any financial distress. And then we looked for open public meetings. We always read the meeting minutes, looking for compliance with those requirements. So like Anne said, we had no reportable issues that we identified that would be included in the report.
Are there any questions about any of those sections that we audited?
I have a question.
Hmm?
This is 2021, 2022.
Yes.
Do you go the month prior to make sure the carryover into January is correct, or you just start at the date that you're doing?
For accountability purposes, we don't go into the month prior, but for financial purposes, which we'll go through here in just a minute, we take a look at your beginning balance for financial statements for 2021 and make sure that they agree to December 31st of 2020's financial report.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that would be the same going forward.
Yes.
We got to 21, 22.
Mhm. Yes, each year, the beginning balance, we make sure agrees to the last year's ending balance on the reported financial statement.
When down on the financial condition, reviewing indications of financial distress, I'm just wanting to be clear that there were none.
There were no indications of financial distress that needed to be reported this year.
And then you talked about the federal money, that's we're talking about the American Recovery. Fund.
Yes, it's the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds.
Right.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Just want to make sure.
Of course. Thank you. All right. So on the next page of the accountability report, it references to the financial report. So since the financial report is in a separate report, I'll direct you to that. And that report starts on page 13 at that financial statement audit report tab. So the financial report is a separate report. And as I mentioned before, when we look at your financial statements, we want to make sure that they're presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with your regulatory basis of accounting. We have two reports that are included within this financial report package. So I'll direct you to the first report, which is on page 16. On page 16, this is our independent audit report over your internal controls over financial statement presentation. And there's a lot of language in here that I'm not going to read through because it's a lot of standard language, but I'm going to kind of point you into some of the areas that are important for you to know of. So, but first of all, when we look at the internal controls for financial statement reporting purposes, we want to make sure that you have controls that are in place and functioning properly to present your financial statements correctly in accordance with your regulatory basis of accounting. Now, for the city of Sunnyside, your regulatory basis of accounting is the cash basis of accounting. And you're reporting, basically, that means you're reporting your cash when it comes in and cash when it goes out. So your revenues are when the money comes in, the expenses are when the money goes out. That is under the BARS manual, which is the Budgeting, Accounting, and Reporting Systems Manual that's prescribed by our office. So if you go to page 17, when we look at your controls, as long as your controls are in place and functioning properly to present the financial statements the way that the BARS manual tells you need to report it, then we can give you a clean internal control opinion. So right before you get to that report on compliance and other matters, like 2 paragraphs above that, it says that let me make sure I'm getting to the right paragraph. Oh, it's the paragraph right above that. It says, given these limitations during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal controls that we consider to be material weaknesses. So ultimately, that's saying that your internal controls were in place. We didn't identify any material errors on those financial statements that were due to a weakness in your control process. So that's a clean opinion on your controls. Then under the report on compliance and other matters, that second sentence, it's referring to tests for non-compliance. We're required to take a look at your financial statements and evaluate whether you are out of compliance with any laws, contracts, grants, or agreements that could have a material impact on your financial statements. And that statement is saying that the results of our tests disclose no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported. So again, that's a clean opinion on that piece of the internal control report. Now, if we go to the financial statement, independent auditors report, that is on page 19. This is where we talk about whether your financial statements are prepared correctly or not. So we're obligated to make sure that your financial statements are prepared correctly in accordance with your regulatory basis of accounting, which again is that BARS manual requirements. And we are able to give you an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. You can see that opinion, that's 3 paragraphs down. It says, in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the cash and investments of the city of Sunnyside and its changes in cash investments for the years ended December 31st, 2022 and 2021. So both of those years were presented fairly in accordance with the BARS manual, which is your regulatory basis of accounting. Now, these statements are not presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, which is okay because the state of Washington does allow you to report under the cash basis of accounting instead of the full accrual GAAP basis of accounting. So because you're not reporting under GAAP, we do just have to have that adverse opinion just to notify the reader that this is not a GAAP report, not a GAAP statement. So that's just to make sure that it's clear that it's cash basis, not GAAP.
But just to be clear, there's no problem with that.
There is no
One or the
problem
other.
with that. Yes. All right, so the rest of this language is just standard language for the reports, so we'll move on from there. And do you have any questions about the financial report at all?
I have one question.
Yes.
So it lists on your report here that there was no distress in the financial for 2022, right? But if you go to the FIT website, it lists 3 different funds. 2 in the yellow and 1 in the red.
Are you looking at the 2022 or 2023?
2022.
Okay, so when we look at the FIT, which is the financial intelligence tool, we evaluate what's going on in those ratios. Those are various ratios that you have. And we evaluate those in relation to the activity that's going on. And even though they might be yellow or in some cases red, that's just a short term there. That could be just a short term indicator because, for instance, maybe you had a large construction project that, maybe had a drop in one place or another. So while I don't have it in front of me right now to be able to tell you exactly what those mean, what we ultimately look at is, do you have sufficient cash to be able to continue operations for, a significant period of time? And as long as we don't see a declining financial condition over a period of time, then we generally wouldn't have any issue. Or if the city is aware and they, are taking steps to address those.
Okay.
Thank you for that question. And thank you for keeping an eye on the FIT, because that is something that we really do take a look at, is to make sure that your council is aware of the activity, is aware of how to use it. The FIT tool is a very good tool to be able to use. So I appreciate you taking a look at that. All right. Yes.
So I'm just looking over your shoulder right now, but if we go on here and we're seeing red or we're seeing like a yellow, I'm sorry, this is kind of a where can who can we go to get maybe a further explanation as to why that color is at that moment, and maybe like a breakdown of, I guess that's where I'm trying to get to. A breakdown of the information.
Very good question. So currently the FIT tool is in, they're doing a little bit of revamping on it. So it's kind of under construction right now. So you can only see what you're seeing right here, but usually the FIT tool breaks it out in detail for you. So here within the next month or so, you should be able to click on each of those and it will show you all of the details that you need. And so that will be available to you so you can do your own research. But of course, you can obviously talk to Jameson. She should be able to break it down for you or explain anything there. And if you're ever concerned, you can always call us as well.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, so why don't we go to the page 1 of your packet. And I just want to round out the financial statement required communication section, which is at the very bottom of the page. Just because these are 3 things that I always have to make sure that I bring to the council's attention, just even though I've already done it, but I just want to reiterate it. So we did not have any material misstatements on the financial statements. There were no uncorrected misstatements on the audited financial statements. So anything that we did identify as an error has been corrected. And then one thing that we do when we audit or when we plan an audit is we have to identify if there are any risks that we want to make sure that we audit during the course of the financial audit. And any of those risks that we come up with, we want to make sure that we bring to your attention during this meeting. And a management override is something that we always have to consider as a significant risk. So we always have to do specific steps to look for any indication of management override. During this audit, we didn't see any indication of management override, so there's nothing that we need to report negatively at this point.
Can you go into more detail on the, there were no uncorrected misstatements?
Yes. So auditing standards require us to identify any misstatements, present it to Jameson and the city manager, and let them know of those misstatements. They evaluate those misstatements and correct them, or if they're trivial in nature, then they don't have to. If they are trivial in nature, then we would bring them to the board today to make sure that the council is aware these errors are still uncorrected, but they're trivial. But in this case, everything that we identified as an error has been corrected on the final statements.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Management override, can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, so auditing standards require us to look for any indication that controls have been overridden. So controls over financial statement preparation. That's what we're looking for. So if we see any controls that were overridden by management, then we would have to bring that to the council's attention. So again, during our financial report, we didn't see any control issues this year.
Thank you.
All right, so Justin will go over the finalizing your audit section, which is on page 2.
So the report will be published on our website in about a week from now. So the copies that you do have are, like Ann said, the drafts. The public report will be available on our website. You can be notified when that's published, going to our website through the SAO portal. We have provided a copy of representation signed as of management. This is a letter that comes from management of required representations that management has to make. It's a standard letter. We've already received it, but a copy of that is included on page 25 of your packet. At the start of the audit, we had an audit cost estimation, and we've provided that estimation here, and the actual costs will be approximately that amount. So the next scheduled audit is scheduled to be this year. It will be over the fiscal year 2023, and that's currently scheduled to be a financial statement audit and a federal single compliance audit, since it's expected that those, from our knowledge, those expenditures are going to be over that $750,000. And then we provided an estimate for that audit there as well. Working together to improve government. At the end of the audit, we do provide a link for a survey, and so management can fill out that survey just to provide us feedback. We get to audit the city. Now the city can let us know how we did in our audit. So with the local government support team, they provide services to any local government. They through technical assistance, comparative statistics like the FIT tool. And they also have a help desk that they monitor. So if management did have any questions, that help desk is available for use. And then the Center of Government Innovations is a team on our agency. They provide different resources and even provide performative type audits for local governments. So we just want to let you know of that resource if the city would like to use that resource in the future. And I believe that's it, other than just the information about our team who was involved in this audit. And I'll let Ann wrap us up.
Well, again, I want to thank you for your time today and just offer up any more questions if you have any.
On the list of things that he just discussed, is there an additional cost for those?
So the lien, anything through the Center for Government Innovation is free. That is through the I-900 that is through the state. So all of those services are free. That does include, they have started doing a cyber checkup that is a really quick way of doing a cybersecurity check. And that is again free of charge. They also have various lean resources, trainings that they can provide, as well as, so the local government support team, all of those are free as well. You can reach out, ask questions, work through the online support services. Those are all free of charge. Mhm. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you. Thank you again for all of your time today, and I appreciate the opportunity to come to your meeting.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
giving us
much.
such a clear explanation of each one of the tests that you did. Just having done several of these in the past and gone through these, having no management letters, having no findings, the things that you listed as being high risk and so forth. That really is reassuring. That means that our staff is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to taking care of our budgets and the money that we do spend. I noticed that there are some things in the exit recommendations that we are already taking and putting into play, just because those are just common sense and good practice. And we're all about good practice here at the City of Sunnyside. So I want to say that. And thank you so much for all of the work that you've done on that.
I have just one question. So I know I think it was 2018 or 19 or 17, there was a finding in each of those years. Do you guys go back, like say in this audit, and make sure that those findings got fixed and they didn't happen again?
Thank you. So we review the findings in the most recent audit. So we won't go back all the way back to 2018. Every year or every audit that we perform an audit, we always look back at the most previous audit and follow up on the findings in that most previous audit.
Okay, thank you.
Can I follow up on that? Isn't it because you're going under maybe the presumption that those things have been taken care of?
Well,
When
as
you bring
auditors, we
when you
don't
bring
want to
them when they're
presume
finding,
anything.
no, I know you don't want to presume, but that is the reason that you point them out, is so that they will be taken care of. So if there was a management letter, then that item should be taken care of.
So
or
hopefully
managed.
the hope is yes. So for instance, if we performed an audit in 2019 and issued a finding, then in 2020, if we have an audit in 2020, we would follow up on the finding in 2019 or 2018 to make sure it's resolved or not. If it's not resolved, then we're going to, and we repeat that same finding, we're going to follow up on it in the next audit and again in the next audit until it's resolved. Once it's resolved, then we may not come back to it again for a number of years until it poses a risk again.
And I know there was no findings now, but there was some, small little errors and stuff. Next time for the 2024, are you looking at those to make sure that there's not the same errors, that we fix them?
Typically, yes, not always, but in many cases, we will look at those again. It just depends on the risks that are identified for the next audit. So we will consider them, we will evaluate them when we do the planning. But if it doesn't pose a risk at that time, then we may not review it, but in most cases we do.
Okay.
And the local government support team really caught my eye. So it says it's really cool that you guys are able to provide supporting services. How's the turnaround? How does that look like? Do a lot of council members take advantage of these support systems in place that you guys do offer?
We would hope to see that.
Have you guys had any? That's the question. Or
If you have any,
have you guys had a good turnout with providing these support systems in the past?
okay, so it depends. So we have, for instance, we have a lot of our local government support team going to conferences and presenting trainings, providing trainings and things like that. So we do have a lot of council and management going to a lot of those conferences like WFOA and we have WPTA coming up and various other conferences that council can attend. And we do have a lot of our trainers that are there to be able to provide those resources to them. So in that case, yes, council does get really active there. And I do think FIT, the financial intelligence tool, is really picked up by a lot of the council members. And so that's something that we really try to proactively get out there and make available to them. And that's something that's useful to you because you as a council member can see not only your own activity, but you can compare governments. You can compare to other cities in the state of Washington to see, how are we doing in comparison to others? What are others' expenses looking like in comparison to the city of Sunnyside? So that kind of activity is useful and used a lot.
You mentioned a conference coming up. Do you guys tend to send out emails just to give a heads up of what's going on?
Yes, so our office has a newsletter that you can subscribe to that newsletter as well. And I believe we even may have a link to it in here.
Okay.
Justin, if you can look for that.
I think it's on 24.
What was that?
Is it on page 24? Learn about our training workshops, on-demand videos.
To stay connected at sao.wa.gov.
Where is that one at, Counselor?
24.
Okay.
Yeah, so request public record. So yeah, the training workshops, those are links to our trainings. But in order to subscribe to our newsletter, it's really actually easy. You just go on to our website, which is sao.wa.gov. And then there's the Audit Connection newsletter link that you can just click on that link. And then in that link, there is a link to subscribe. But I believe we have a link in here somewhere. If we don't, then I can send it to Jameson and Jameson can send it out to you.
Yeah, I would really appreciate that. This is a really good service that you guys provide, and I think we should all participate and take advantage of it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll for sure get that link to Jameson. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so
Well,
much for the time today.
Mayor
Well,
Borisman, do you have any questions?
Yes, this is the mayor speaking, and I just want to thank you guys for your time. I want to thank you for your audit. I'm obviously very delighted that there's no serious findings or any issues that needed to be dealt with. I also want to thank you specifically for putting us early on the schedule for the 23 audit to make sure that we're in compliance. Last year, I know we had some serious questions from community members, and that's just going to help us so much to be able to answer those questions and calm their fears, perhaps, if that's the best way to say it. So thank you for that hard work. I have friends who have been involved in audits professionally, and they tell me the amount of work that goes into that. And I have to just commend you guys for taking all of that time to go through all that detail. That's not something that I excel at. So thank you for being here today. And to those who are in the audience, thank you for taking time out of your day to come and participate in this as well. I hope it was educational for you as well. So, and if there's no other questions or comments, then with the figurative tapping of the gavel, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And it was Anne and Justin. Okay, nice to meet you.
Yeah.